everyone. This is Anne with the Licky Park District, and I'm here to talk to you today about the amazing squirrel. Now, we take squirrels for granted quite a lot of the time, but they're quite fascinating animals. We have 4 species here in Ohio: the eastern gray squirrel, the fox squirrel, the red squirrel, and the flying squirrel. And the one you see here is the eastern gray squirrel. Now, we see them quite often, but do we ever really take the time to really watch them? That is the question. Now, you can see this one here is on the lawn, and it's got a nut, I think an acorn. And you can see how um, those front paws are used to really do some fine scale movement. He's moving that nut around, kind of chewing on it, and I think soon we're going to see him bury part of it. Now, this is an arboreal species, so they spend a lot of time up in the tree canopy, but they're going to descend to the ground to gather nuts and seeds and acorns and then to bury food for later. And it said they can bury up to 25 nuts in an hour. They can smell them under a foot of snow. And while they say they can find them all, that may or may not be true, that they remember where every single one is. The real fact is that a number of them that they may not eat in the future are responsible for new trees growing. So they are a huge agent of reforestation. So they perform that ecological service. And now you can see that this squirrel has actually is in the process of burying that nut. Now, eastern gray squirrels used to be very, very plentiful, even more plentiful than they are now. Early settlers described armies of squirrels, and in fact, there were so many that taxpayers had to include squirrel skins with their tax payment. Now, that made populations actually plummet, and that was discontinued after a while. Now, as you watch this squirrel, you'll notice that it's kind of a reddish-brown color. They can be reddish-brown, rusty color. They tend to have a white belly, so that's how you know it's an eastern gray squirrel. And you can see that long tail, and that tail is amazing. It's used for balance, and as you watch this squirrel move, you can see it's kind of fluffy and long behind. They use it for shade in the summer, kind of like a blanket in the winter. They can even use it as a parachute and for communication. So when a squirrel shakes its tail, kind of quivers its tail, that might be a greeting to other squirrels and future mates. When it really kind of waves it back and forth, that's a sign of alarm. So this one right now is kind of standing up and waving that tail. That is a, hey, there's something out there, maybe a predator, that I'm watching for, and I'm actually letting others know that it is there too. And in this case, it might actually be me. So the squirrel has maybe noticed that I am here. But you can really see kind of that behavior of that, those jerky movements, kind of standing up to look around, using that tail to communicate. Now, this is another squirrel that, same species, different coloration, as you can see. Now, the cool thing is that you may encounter albino squirrels, and albinism is caused by mutation in the gene for pigmentation. So they lack all pigments. And you can tell it's an albino if it has red eyes. But eastern gray squirrels can also come in what's called a white morph. So they're all white, but they're not an albino. They have dark eyes. So it is not kind of that gene mutation. And that just happens to be a coloration. I'm trying to get up close to the eyes here, and it's not quite focusing. But I'm fairly certain that this one has dark eyes, not pink. It's kind of hard to see in this light. And there's actually another morph that squirrels can be, which is piebald, which actually other species can be. You can have a piebald deer, for instance, where it's mottled. So there's kind of some brown patches and then some white patches. We've actually seen deer like that out at our Taft Reserve. But it's just kind of interesting when you see kind of this white coloration, it always stands out. Now, this would mean that this squirrel is a lot more likely than the one we're showing now with the normal pigmentation to be predated. As you can see, even in the green grass, the squirrel that's browner blends a little bit more. But when you have this bright white coloration, you've got to be a little bit more likely to possibly be predated. But as you watch, you can see same type of mannerisms. Anyway, I hope that you maybe take a closer look at the squirrels in your lives. They have home ranges of about 2 to 7 acres. So if you have one in your yard, or multiple ones, they're kind of going to hang out in that area. So those are your squirrels. They do have nests in the summer and the winter, and their nests are big, kind of bulky, with lots of leaves and twigs and more of a sphere than, say, a cup nest like a bird. They'll breed twice. They'll have 2 sets of babies, and they'll have up to 8 babies at a time. That usually occurs in late winter and then midsummer. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, take care.